Hello, my name is Christine Bailey.
And I'm Laura Bailey.
There's been much more to these last 12 months than just COVID-19. There's also been the end of a particular subculture, shall we call it, in one part of the world, where it seemed you're allowed to make up truth as you went along, and then call it alternative facts. And anything reported by journalists that was disagreeable was then called fake news. Put like that, it seems implausible that anyone would go along with that anyone would be taken in like that. But we humans have a tendency to adapt to our circumstances. And if we've lived with an ideology long enough, we come to believe it. We come to accept it, especially if it'll cost us too much to refuse to. But it will leave us asking, who can I believe? Who can I trust anymore? Especially when we learn that alternative facts have also been put out by our own culture in our part of the world. So as we read today's passage in Matthew's Gospel, we are set thinking about truth and lies, deception and intrigue, false accusation and true loyalty.
While he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus replied, "Do what you came for, friend." Then the man stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him.
Jesus has seen it all coming from the very beginning of his ministry, and now he sees Judas coming before his companions do. Judas comes in the guise of a friend. That's how Jesus greets him. But we all know that Judas has brought soldiers with him to arrest Jesus, who remains in command of the situation, even though he is bound and led away a prisoner and handed over.
Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priests and the whole of Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus, so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.'" Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent.
Jesus is obediently living out what God has asked him, even though those taking part might seem to think otherwise. Everything is open to scrutiny, but still the high priest and the council tried using many alternative facts and false witnesses. But eventually, power pits against truth, and a couple of false witnesses are found. There's a big show of false spirituality, and a false verdict is concocted. There was no programmed press release by the high priest, with the cameras of the world trained on his face and on the face of Jesus, because Jesus answers with a deafening silence. Although we are told that the disciples have deserted Jesus, Peter at least shows up again at a distance in the courtyard of the high priest.
Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," she said, but he denied it before them all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he went out to the gateway, where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." He denied it again with an oath. "I don't know the man." After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away." Then he began to call down curses, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Immediately, a cock crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken, "Before the cock crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly.
What happened there is well known. I bet Peter wished later that it wasn't. There was no bank of reporters anywhere near. Again, no free press eager to claim the story. But everybody found out. And I suspect that it was Peter himself, broken-hearted Peter, who owned up to it somewhere along the line. Because when fake news has been seen for what it is, then truth can flourish. 3 times Peter disowned Jesus out of fear. The 3 times that Jesus had told him he would. There's something about human beings that makes us want to think that we are invincible. But Jesus knows that we aren't on our own. And it makes him love us not 1 iota less because of it. I am a weak and often ill-disciplined disciple of Jesus. I don't put on the whole armour of God that the Bible talks about to protect myself from the things that could bring me down. I'm fearful and timid a lot of the time. I'm full of bravado, talking the talk and looking good at other times. But he sees through it all of the time. He's willing to support and encourage me. He's willing to forgive. But he deals in truth, and so must I. Late on that Thursday night, fake news appeared to have won, but it hadn't, and it won't now. By the end of today, we'll be up to date in the story of Holy Week, as we call it, the last week of Jesus' earthly life. We still have the terrible events of tomorrow, Friday, to deal with, to get through. But we'll face it with truth. We'll face it with the knowledge that it affects us. We'll face it in anguish, but in love. There are no alternative facts. The fact is, he will die, and he'll do it for us, because there is no alternative. Shall we close with a very short prayer? God of truth, help me to live with honesty about myself and the world I live in and you, and so bring comfort to your heart. Amen.